Hey guys, what is up? I'm Maddie, and this is Creative Readers, etc., the channel where we do creative things that sometimes involve reading, etc. And I run this channel with Cassandra and Lexi. Today I'm doing a book talk on Counting by 7's by Holly Goldberg Sloan. And I've read this book before. I read it in 6th grade, and I really enjoyed it, but now, as my senior year of high school, I didn't really remember anything that had happened. I remember, like, the basic plot points, because most of this book kind of, like, stuck with me more than other books had, like, long term. Like, I reread the Percy Jackson series recently, and I literally did not remember. Like, things were happening, and I was genuinely surprised. But with this book, I wasn't really surprised by anything, but I really enjoyed diving back into the story. So, Counting by 7's is a book about a girl named Willow Chance, and basically, she's adopted, and she's a genius. So, the main storyline is following her and her love for plants and science and weird medical skin conditions. So basically, she really just is fascinated by all the sciencey stuff. In this book, her parents are like her best friends because she doesn't really fit in at school or anything. And so her parents die in a car crash, which the way this story is, sometimes when you have a book with characters where like parents die or someone dies in the beginning, it's really rushed and you don't get that character development. But this book did a really good job of getting the character development in there with the parent and child relationship. And so you get to see a little bit of their relationship, and then you get to dive into the parent story a little bit through a couple of chapters. So her mom has breast cancer, and her dad are driving to a doctor when they die in this car crash. And so Willow actually never knows that, I don't think, because they had just found out. So it was kind of one of those things where we know the parents die in the beginning, so it's not really a spoiler because that's the whole preface of the book. But then when they started introducing the parents into the story and you had chapters just about them, I started like feeling for the parents because, you know, her mom has breast cancer and they were like freaking out and it was just a whole big deal. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then I had to remind myself that, oh yeah, they aren't in the rest of the story. So this book is written so well that I started caring about the characters that I already knew were going to die, which was kind of like painful, but it was just so well written. So after her parents die, Willow obviously goes into like a state of fear and not knowing what's going to happen. And at school, she's really an outcast, but they take these exams, kind of like a STAR test, but not exactly. I think it was like a practice, like a benchmark type test. And she made a 100 on it. She got a perfect score. And so the administrators are like, no, she must have cheated. So they sent her to this counselor who is the school counselor, but he's really a bad person in the beginning of the book. He's really bad. Like, he's a slob. He doesn't really care. He's just clocking in to get a paycheck so he can go home. And basically, he doesn't do anything at home. He cooks his dinner, which is a frozen meatloaf that you just stick in the microwave, and then he goes to bed, and then he gets up and does it all again the next day without really any thought. Without really like putting any thought into his life and just kind of just living, I guess. And so she meets with this counselor and they talk a little bit. So the counselor's name is Dell, and basically Dell's system of counseling is he has different categories that he puts people in. There are the misfits, the oddballs, the weirdos, and then a couple other categories. But when he meets Willow, he has her take more tests, and he's obviously sitting there watching her take the test. And she takes 2 more benchmarks, scores perfectly on them, and he makes a new category called Genius, which for him is very different because he was the type of counselor that when the other counselor that was before him had a whole organizing system, he literally threw it all away and didn't look at it because he didn't want to take the time and effort to go through it. So basically, whenever she finds out that her parents die, she's with Dell and May, another girl who helps her brother because her brother has counseling, so she's always there helping him out and everything. And so May and Willow and May's brother, who I can't really pronounce his name, and he's not a super important character, so I'm just going to say May's brother because it's just easier for me. But so they're all 3 in the car, and Dell had just taken them to go get ice cream, which is not really allowed because he's the school counselor, and he's not really supposed to have them driving around in their car. But when he pulls up to Willow's house to drop her off, the police are there, and so basically that's when that whole thing happens. And May decides that she wants to help out Willow because May is basically the only real friend that Willow's ever had, because May and her brother are from Vietnam, I guess, and so they speak Vietnamese. And Willow, being the genius that she is, the first time she met May, she said, "Oh, you speak Vietnamese?" And May was like, "Yeah." And so the next day when she came back, Willow had memorized 85 Vietnamese phrases, and within the next couple of weeks basically learns to speak fluent Vietnamese. The way her intelligence is portrayed is very believable, and it's not like, oh, she's a genius in every category. Like, there's some things she doesn't understand. Like, she's not really good with the emotion and, like, psychology type of thinking. She really likes the cold hard facts and the different medical stuff. So she's more on the hard science type of interest. And so the book doesn't try to say that she knows everything. It's very good about, because she's only 12 years old, so it's very good about having her childlike mindset along with her vast knowledge of different things. And I really appreciated that as well. So after her parents die, they don't know what to do with her because she doesn't really have any family because she's adopted. So she doesn't know all her like original family, and her adopted family didn't really have a whole lot of ties. She had one grandmother that lived like a couple of states away. It wasn't really a good thing for her to move a long ways away from where she was, just because she's very sensitive. And she's sensitive in a way. She has kind of OCD, which is why the book is called Counting by Sevens. Because when she gets anxious or nervous, which is quite a lot, she starts counting by sevens, and she goes all the way up to the 400s or 500. I think 556 was the last number that she counted to. And she just did it all by sevens, which I can go 7, 14, 21, 28, and that's about it. But it actually listed it all out in the book, all the numbers, and I thought that was cute too, because you got to see her mindset and everything. And so May and her brother live in a garage with their mom, who works at a nail salon. And they go talk to their mom, you know, speaking in rapid fire Vietnamese. So Willow doesn't really know what's going on. But then May convinces her mom to take in Willow and foster her for a while before she goes into like a forever home, basically, because now she's having to be adopted again. And May's mom's name is Peggy, and she's a really good character throughout the book, and she agrees to this. So Willow starts staying with them in their garage that they live in, and then one day it's about 2 weeks later, they're in there, and Peggy's at the salon, which is right across the street from where they live, which is in the garage. And she gets a call from Willow's caseworker and learns that the caseworker will be coming in the next 6 hours, I believe, because it was 6 or 8 hours to do a home check. And obviously they know that a one-bed garage is not the kind of place that is going to pass a home check. So Dell, the counselor, has kind of been here intermittently. He helped out with the police and stuff, and he's been kind of keeping tabs just to make sure that everything's okay. And so basically, Peggy walks in. I love Peggy. She's a kick-butt character. Oh my gosh. So she walks into Dell's apartment, and his apartment is filthy, disgusting. And she says, okay, we're going to clean this place up. And over the course of the next 6 hours, Peggy, May's brother, Willow, and Dell all just drop what they're doing, completely clean out his thing. And it's a great montage because it's a small apartment, and they have about 6 or 8 hours, I'm not exactly sure. So the timeline's not unreasonable. It's not like, oh, we're going to be there in 30 minutes. And it's not like in the movies where they do a crazy cleaning montage, and it's like, there's no way. It's believable. And, so they had a reasonable amount of time to like clean out this thing, and they're sending Doug to the store to get stuff because, you know, he doesn't have anything in his fridge except for frozen meatloafs and all sorts of stuff. And so the home check lady gets there, and they see everything's okay, and they're like, okay, that's cool. And then that's where they live. So basically they kick Dell out of his apartment, and he goes down to another apartment because one of the people who lived in his apartment was looking for a roommate. So basically Peggy kicks Dell out of his own home, makes him be a roommate with the other dude, and takes over his house. And so May, Peggy, and their whole family, including Willow, all go and live in Dell's apartment, which is hilarious. But Dell is such like a pushover character that it's not unbelievable either, because like he's super timid, and he's lazy and he's timid, and his character development is pretty good because by the end of the book you can still see some of his old characteristics, but he starts finding things to enjoy again. And so they live there for 2 or 3 months, and one of Willow's things that she really loves is plants, and she's super fascinated by them. So at her old house with her mom and dad, she had an entire garden in the back, and that was her spot that she loved. And in this apartment complex, there's not really any place for a garden. So then Willow decides to write up a complete booklet on why they should turn this big ugly space in the middle of the courtyard into a garden. He goes to town hall and presents it to one of the higher up people, and they're like, wow, you're very thorough. And Doug's kind of like, oh yeah, I guess, because you know Willow wrote this entire thing. And they make him the groundskeeper and overseer of the whole apartment complex. And so they completely reimagine it. They get a power sprayer and they spray the walls. And when they start spraying the walls, all the paint starts chipping off. And they find a better color underneath. And sorry, my cat's jumping on my stuff. But so they go in and they change the color of the entire apartment complex with a power washer. And then they dig up all this nasty rock that was there as like a centerpiece of the courtyard. And Willow starts planting a garden. She's good friends with the people who have all the plants. I don't know what I'm saying. What's it called? It's not a plant shop. Is it a plant shop? Whatever. You know what I mean. She's friends with all the guys who run the plant shop because she goes in there a lot to get different types of plants and trees and stuff. And so they know that her parents have died and they want to give her a gift. So all the people from the plant shop come over and they have just this huge amount of stuff. They have bamboo, they have a tree, they have all sorts of stuff that they plant in this area. And then they have like lights that go in the ground and like shine up through the thing. And it's just, the imagery in this book is so good because you can see everything. But it's one of those books, it reads a lot like Darius the Great is Not Okay. So if you want to read that book, I would definitely recommend it. And if you enjoyed that book and you've already read it, I would definitely highly recommend this book, because I love it so much. It deals with the mental issues that she has along with her, the loss of her parents and all sorts of stuff, and it does a really good job of it. Okay, so they live in the apartment for 2 months, they redo the garden, everything is great, and then it comes time for her to go and find her forever home. And so she has to go to the court, obviously, because that's where the judge will decide that. And so basically at the end of the book, Peggy and one of Peggy's friends who has been talking to Willow for a while, because he drives a taxi, Peggy's friend, he drives a taxi, and Willow has called him multiple times to take her to different places like the library and other places after her parents have died and she doesn't have a way to get around. And so she notices a little bump on the back of his neck, and she leaves a note because she was upset and she didn't want to talk. So she left a note and said, hey, you might want to get that checked out. And so he goes and gets it checked out, and it was actually a cancerous spot because, you know, she loves this medical skin stuff. And so she had written that, like, she wrote a bunch of specific stuff that I don't really remember. And so he starts calling her his guardian angel. And so Peggy and him start dating, actually. And together, they basically kick Dell out of his apartment. I don't know what it kind of ends right after they get to adopt a Willow for forever. So I don't know if they ended up kicking him out of his apartment or what. But one of the things that happens that's really, I've heard a lot of complaints about it on reviews that I've seen. But Peggy, who owns the nail salon, she actually buys the entire apartment building because she has a lot of money stored up. And when I first read it, I was like, okay, that's really out of nowhere and that's far-fetched. And then I went to the back of the book after it was over, and there's a questionnaire with the author, and she based that off of a true story that happened, off of a guy who came from another country and basically lived like he was broke for a very long time, and then just saved up a whole bunch of money so that he could, he bought a hotel. And so she based it off of a real story, and although I can see that, it was the only thing that was a little bit far-fetched for me, because they built up these characters like as the poor characters who are doing what they can with what they have, but then apparently they have a whole lot, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it wasn't necessarily off-putting, it was just a little bit odd. But other than that, it's a wonderful story. I love this story so much, and oh my gosh, I fell in love with the characters, and I just recommend everybody go read it. And that's the book talk. So if you've read this book and like it, comment down below, and if you haven't read it, let me know if you plan on reading it. Like and subscribe. Go check out our other videos. If you want to see my Darius the Great is Not Okay book talk, that is also up on our channel. And because these two books read the same, I would definitely recommend reading that one as well if you've read Counting by Sevens. And other than that, I think I'm done. Have a great day, and I'll see y'all next time.